Rebirth+Era+1v1 Sweet Pet, human clarity makes it difficult to be confused. Female lead versus male lead pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. Ning Meng has been an obedient girl for her whole life, not quarreling or making a fuss, accepting everything from bad to bad. The end of soft counseling is that she was framed by the Black Heart Lotus sisters, abandoned by her new husband, and abused by her parents-in-law. Upon waking up from her rebirth, she decided to step on the top, abuse the scum, focus on her career, and reach the pinnacle of her life. Bullying her. Go back. Snatching her business. Go to hell. She is in charge of her life. However, the man who disguised himself as a pig and ate a tiger pitifully said to her, "Cute and cute, how can there be sweet love in pursuing a career?" Ning Meng abandoned her former wealthy scumbag and turned around to marry a poor boy. Everyone said, "A good child, a heart full of lard, marrying a poor boy, a lifetime of poverty and hardship." But I never expected it. The poor boy transformed into a business tycoon they couldn't afford to climb up. The wealthy man who was highly regarded by everyone declined at once. Everyone felt very sad in their hearts, but on the surface, they could only smile and say that they had cute and intelligent eyes. Keywords of the novel. Rebirth of 90, unexpectedly husband is a big boss with no pop-ups. Rebirth of 90, unexpectedly husband is a big boss. Download the full text of the text. Rebirth of 90, unexpectedly husband is a big boss with the latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Rebirth. Ning Meng was awakened by the sound of words outside the door. "Are you all dead? What time is it? Why hasn't the food been prepared yet? Are you all trying to starve me to death?" Before opening her eyes, Ning Meng heard her father, Ning Shui, shouting and cursing for decades outside the door. "Dad! Ning Shui." Ning Meng was taken aback for a moment. Since Ning Shui was paralyzed, he basically didn't leave home. How could he come to the Lin family to act wild? "Don't you blush and please the Lin family." Before Ning Meng could react, she immediately heard her mother Zhang Rongfen's obedient answer, "It's ready right away. It's ready right away." No, this is not the Lin family. Shocked, it was not enough to describe Ning Meng's feelings at the moment. With a loud bang in her brain, she couldn't help but clear her thoughts. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and sat up to examine the place around her. As far as the eye can see, there are old-fashioned wooden beds and rainy mosquito nets, as well as the table next to the head of the bed that has fallen out of its original paint, and the familiar dirt-yellow tattered mud wall. Even though the light in the room was not so abundant, Ning Meng still recognized it at a glance. This was her room in the Ning family before getting married. The few slightly faded Guafucheng posters pasted on the wall were still manually pasted by her. Ning Meng was secretly shocked in her heart, not understanding what was going on in this room. Since she got married, it has become her family's miscellaneous room. Although this room may not be very clean and tidy now, it is clearly not a miscellaneous room for storing agricultural tools and firewood. Ning Meng couldn't believe it and reached out to touch the poster on the wall inadvertently. Her gaze fell on her slender and white fingers. Her nervous heartbeat and even breathing were exceptionally clear in the eerie quiet room. Ning Meng trembled and raised her hand to her own eyes. No, this is not her hand. Or rather, this should not be her hands that have worked as slaves and maids in the Lin family for decades. Also, isn't she dead? He died of illness in the dark and cramped small attic of the Lin family. Has she not died yet? Dreaming. Ning Meng was about to pinch her thigh to confirm if she was dreaming when a dull pain came from behind her head, telling her that it was definitely not a dream. Without considering how the wound behind her head was caused, she was surprised that she was not dreaming. So now is it? Meng, have you woken up? Ning Meng was still shaking her mind, and outside the door there was a knocking sound of dudu, as well as Zhang Rongfen's hesitant questioning. If you wake up, get up and eat. Mom made you your favorite fried egg. I really think of myself as a wealthy young lady. Even if I don't cook, can I still have someone deliver the food to her mouth? If I don't eat it, I won't starve her to death. Ning Shueishui cursed impatiently outside. Since Ning Shueishui fell off the construction site, causing paralysis in his lower body, his already bad temper has become even more peculiar and irritable. A small matter can easily lead to verbal abuse. Ning Meng has long become accustomed to the unpredictable attitude of Ning Shueishui. From the beginning of Ning Meng's memory, although she and her brother were the only two children in the family, Ning Shueishui was extremely male-biased and never gave her a good face. She would either hit or curse every day. That is to say, he is paralyzed and can no longer hit people casually, so Ning Meng's life is a bit easier. As for being scolded, it's just a few words from him, and he won't lose a piece of meat. Ning Meng is at his disposal. Amidst Ning Shueishui's angry curse, Ning Meng only wanted to know which year, month, and day she was reborn and returned to. The most important thing is whether she is in time to correct her fate. Yes, that's right, she was reborn. Reborn back to the 90s before she got married. She dare not force anything else, at least in this lifetime of rebirth. She will never marry into that devilish Lin family again. Ning Meng clenched her fists tightly, and an indescribable emotion surged in her heart. Suddenly, a loud bang from outside shook her awake. Ning Meng's heart was still hanging in mid-air before it could be fully realized. A familiar scream from Ning Shueishui rang out outside the door. Damn it. You scumbag, you kicked the door open. Do you pay to repair it? Since falling paralyzed and unable to make money, Ning Shueishui has been drilling into the eyes of money. Opening and closing are all money. Ning Chao, who kicked the door in, clearly had long been accustomed to his father's character and casually interjected, Isn't this not bad yet? By the way, Mom, what did you make to eat? Hurry up and bring it out, I'm almost starving. Here, it's all at the dinner table. Just vegetarian noodles. Ning Chao glanced at the bowl of noodles on the dining table, which had no hint of meat smell, and suddenly lost all appetite. Just as he threw down his chopsticks, intending to trick Zhang Rongfen into some money, and went out to eat and drink with his fox friends, his sharp eyes caught sight of Zhang Rongfen's crispy fried eggs in the cupboard, and without saying a word, he took them out and started eating. As he ate, he muttered in his mouth, Mom, are you going too far? Just fried eggs for Dad, why are you secretly hiding two from me? I'm still not your own son. Zhang Rongfen sighed with a worried expression, Isn't your sister injured? I'm thinking of boiling her an egg to make up for it. These days, although it is not a famine era, many families in Ningmeng's rural areas can only eat vegetables and pickles with porridge or rice. Meat and vegetables are eaten on holidays or when guests come. Eggs are laid by one's own chicken, but every household, except for keeping the breeding eggs for hatching chicks, has to sell the rest for money, so they are not willing to eat them. Watching Ning Chao finish those two fried eggs in just a few bites, Zhang Rongfen felt a bit heartbroken. What's to make up for? If you want to make up for it, you can also make up for your son. If that loser did something shameful like eloping with a wild man, she deserved to be beaten to death. If it weren't for Chao's timely arrival, my Ning family's face would have been ruined for her long ago. As soon as Zhang Rongfen finished speaking, Ning Shueishui didn't care if Ning Meng in the room would feel embarrassed when she heard it. She slapped her chopsticks and cursed fiercely, blowing her beard and staring at her eyes. No matter how others praised Ning Meng for being obedient, in the eyes of Ning Shueishui, she is a debt collector and loser. Speaking of this, Ning Shueishui even slammed the table with a thud. He began to curse loudly again. Ning's mother, Zhang Rongfen, was originally a rural woman with little culture and no independent opinions. Naturally, her husband said whatever she wanted. Although both sons and daughters have flesh on their palms and backs, the difference between meat and flesh is quite significant. In Zhang Rongfen's heart, the weight of a daughter is far less than that of her husband and son. Listening to her husband's increasing scolding, Zhang Rongfen dared not even breathe a sigh of grandeur, let alone argue for her daughter. P.S. Dear everyone, Cat has finally opened a new book. This is the first Era article that cats have tried. If you like it, please support it. Firstly, let's make an agreement that in this book, please do not mention the books of other authors. In other people's books, please also try not to mention this book as it may lead to misunderstandings. Secondly, the plot of this book is fictional. If there are any unreasonable aspects, they are all for the purpose of serving the plot. Please do not rely on evidence. If you want to argue, then you are right. Finally, the book that has been prepared for a long time has finally opened. I hope that the children can read the article happily, and I can code the words, comments, votes, and 5 points of praise with peace of mind. Let's get up. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Elopement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Elopement. Ning Meng, who was originally searching for items in the room to confirm the date, listened to Ning Shueishue's curses in one ear and out the other, without any inner turmoil. However, when Ning Shueishue mentioned the word she eloped with a wild man, her heart suddenly moved. Do you mean, can it be said that today is exactly the day in 1991 when she is preparing to go to the vocational school to report? Great, her life is saved. Ning Meng burst into tears of joy. The most regretful day of her previous life was today. Today in her previous life, although not the darkest and most desperate day of her life. But it was definitely the beginning of her later tragic life. Since childhood, Ning Meng has known that Ning Shueishue values men over women, but she also insists on saving face. If it weren't for the fear of being poked in the back by the villagers and scolded for favoring boys over girls, Ning Shueishue wouldn't even want to send Ning Meng to school. So, Ning Meng went to school 2 years later than other children. By the time Ning Meng finished elementary school, it was already Ning Shueishue's limit. According to him, if a girl graduates from elementary school and only knows a few words, what else should she attend middle school? Reading so many books will only delay helping the family work and earning money. If it weren't for Ning Meng's excellent grades and the teacher's unwillingness to lose her talents, she would tirelessly come to her door to do ideological work, promising to waive Ning Meng's tuition miscellaneous fees for 3 years. Ning Shueishue would definitely not have allowed Ning Meng to go to junior high school. In this way, Ning Meng still had to promise him that she could only continue going to school without delaying the farm work at home. Fortunately, Ning Meng is also in high spirits. Even though she spends less time in school than others, her grades still rank first in the school every year. During the middle school entrance examination, I ranked second in the county and was admitted to a vocational normal school that does not charge tuition fees, provides living allowances, and even takes on job assignments after graduation. This kind of good news is great news for anyone's family, but Ning Meng knows that her family is different. Ning Shueishue wishes she had no future and didn't want to continue studying. The more promising Ning Meng is, the more useless Ning Chao becomes. Isn't this just hitting him in the face directly? When Ning Meng was worried, Su Zhenfang, a good sister who had played since childhood, gave her a tip. You can report to school secretly. As long as you leave, your father can't go to school to bring you back. That's quite true. Upon hearing this, Ning Meng was taken aback. I quietly packed my luggage and took out the change I had saved from selling snails for many years as travel expenses. When my family was not paying attention, I carried my luggage and prepared to report to the normal school. She originally planned to write a letter back to her family when she arrived at school. However, before she could reach the village entrance, Ning Chao, who was being driven up from behind with a stick, knocked her unconscious with a heavy stick and dragged her home. Knowing nothing, Ning Meng opened her eyes to face unfounded accusations from her family and rumors of her eloping with a wild man in the village. At that time, she was young and ignorant, completely frightened by this incident, so panicked that she didn't know how to speak up to defend herself. By the time she wanted to defend herself, it was already too late. Even her closest family doesn't believe her, let alone those villagers in the same village who have no relatives or connections. Not surprisingly, Ning Meng's reputation in Xiaojiang village has been tarnished. For a long time to come, Ning Meng was the talk of the villagers after their tea and dinner. As she walked on the road, she could hear the villagers pointing at her, such as, "Look, it's her, shameless. She's crazy about reading, so despicable that she eloped with a wild man and ruined the faces of all the women in Xiaojiang village. That's right, I don't know what Lao Ning thinks. Let her out. If it's my daughter, even if we don't pull her to sink the pond, we'll have to hang her up and break her legs. TSK, who dares to marry such a woman who doesn't abide by women's morals in the future? Even the lame Ming at the village gate despises her for being dirty. Isn't it true that I didn't cultivate in my past life, and my family is unfortunate?" Such idle chatter, sentence by sentence, was like a poison knife, piercing Ning Meng's chest again and again, with the knife carrying blood. Ning Meng has argued with them before, but the result of the argument is that the more she describes it, the darker it becomes. They accused her of being a thief with a guilty heart and becoming angry with embarrassment. From then on, Ning Meng no longer went out and hid at home every day. Not to mention going to school according to the original plan. So much so that when the Lin family brought their matchmaker to propose marriage, not only her parents were overjoyed, but even she felt that the Lin family's marriage was a big pie falling from the world and hit her. It's to save her. No one would care why a wealthy family living in the city, with a large family and a large business, was willing to offer a dowry of 20,000 yuan in the 1990s, with an average annual income of only 1,000 yuan, accompanied by a gold ring, earrings, and necklace. They also arranged a job position in a cement factory in the town for Ning Meng's mother's family, just to marry her, a small peasant girl. How extraordinary it is. Everything comes with a price. In her previous life, it wasn't until her deathbed that Ning Meng finally understood that sentence. The gift given by fate has already been secretly marked with a price. Ning Chao was so angry that his nose was not his nose and his eyes were not his eyes. His eyeballs rolled around and he immediately followed the interface, saying, "Yes. Mom, don't be biased. Ning Meng not only eloped with a wild man, but also stole money from home." "What? She even stole money. She's turned around, isn't she?" Ning Shui, who values money as his life, became furious when he heard that Ning Meng had stolen money from home. His body also shook and he felt numb below his waist, unable to move at all. I had no choice but to angrily shout at Zhang Rongfen, "Why don't you go and call out that damn slut?" If he were still the powerful and agile Ning Shui of the past at this moment, he would probably have started directly on his own. Meng shouldn't have. Although she doesn't care enough about her daughter, Zhang Rongfen still knows her husband to some extent. Most of the money at home is held by Ning Shui, and the amount allocated to Zhang Rongfen is extremely limited. Moreover, he spends the whole day lying at home, and even if Ning Meng has the intention to steal, she has no way to start. Damn it. Look at the little bitch you gave birth to. Not only did you lose face on my Ning family, but you also stole money from them inside and outside. Are you going to call her or not? Is it because I can't speak well now? Ning Shui pounded the dining table hard and interrupted Zhang Rongfen's words with a resentful voice. The tone was malicious, without any kind tone that a father should have, but rather like an enemy with deep hatred towards Ning Meng. Standing behind the door, Ning Meng sarcastically curled her lips. Look, these are her parents, her beloved family. To her, it's like to her enemies. Fortunately, in her previous life, when she was on the brink of death, she even fantasized that they could come to the Lin family and take her away. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Arguments. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Arguments. Dad, Mom, don't argue, I'll go in and call her. Ning Chao, who had been watching the children's play for a while, pretended to have a dilemma on his face and tried to please Ning Shui, saying, Ning Chao speaks better than he sings, but he has his own little tricks in his heart. He doesn't care if Ning Meng will be angry or sad if she is falsely accused of stealing money. Anyway, he's been tight lately and needs to go to his sister's room to find some change to spend while his parents are arguing outside. That person once said that his sister actually secretly hid a lot of private money on her body. Otherwise, why is he so anxious to knock her unconscious and bring her back? I'm not afraid she might take their Ning family's money and go back to pay for that wild man. It's better if she hasn't woken up yet, so it's convenient for him to search inside the house. While Ning Shui and others were clamoring, Ning Meng's mind had gradually calmed down. Since heaven has given her a chance to be reborn, she cannot blindly follow the old path of a lifetime. In her previous life, she didn't argue or make a fuss, and was obedient. What did she get in exchange for? It's beating, it's torture, its life is not worth dying. Now, she has died once, a woman who has returned from the 21st century, how can she still be as cowardly as before, allowing people to knead her flat and round? In this life, she is rather cute and only wants to be herself. Ning Meng calmed down and walked to the door. Suddenly, she opened the door and stepped out of the threshold. As Ning Chao was about to push the door in, he didn't expect Ning Meng to be ahead of him and open the door without saying a word. He didn't stand firmly under his feet, stumbled 2 steps, and almost fell to the ground. Under his push, the door slammed hard against the wall, making a clanging sound. Ning Chao, who has always walked horizontally at home, had not even stood firm and immediately jumped into a rage, shouting loudly. Ning Meng! You're looking for death. Don't you even make a sound when opening the door. He completely doesn't feel that his behavior of trespassing into someone else's room is wrong. Ning Meng blinked her eyes and her gaze stopped on Ning Chao for only 1 or 2 seconds. Then she moved away and said calmly, "Oh." Passing over him, he walked to Ning Shui and Zhang Rongfen, stopped and asked calmly, "Dad, what do you want to do with me?" Ning Shuixing frowned and gazed at Ning Meng in front of him. Although he felt that she seemed a bit strange, he, who had always been accustomed to being exclusive, would not delve into the changes in emotions of someone he had never considered before. He snorted coldly as usual and shouted angrily in a deep voice, "Kneel down." Ning Meng. The Qing dynasty has been dead for so many years, how can anyone still not understand the situation? Cute and adorable. Seeing Ning Meng standing still, Zhang Rongfen called out to her with a worried expression, indicating that she should not provoke Ning Shui. To avoid suffering from skin and flesh. Ning Meng couldn't help but sneer, then slightly curled her head and didn't look at Zhang Rongfen. In an instant, she stabilized her emotions and said calmly, "If you don't have anything to say, then I have something to say. It's said that catching a traitor requires catching a couple. Those with red lips and white teeth spread rumors about me eloping with a wild man, because they think my reputation is too good and our family is not ashamed enough, right? Oh, and by the way, when you say I stole money, do you have any evidence? Without evidence, it's just a false accusation." Ning Meng really doesn't understand their brain circuits, so even if she's biased, she needs to pay attention to moderation, right? They are all part of the same family, which has tarnished her reputation. Do they have a lot of face in the village? Ning Shui never expected that Ning Meng, who had always been timid and obedient, not only did not kneel down to obey his commands as before, but also boldly started talking to herself. Moreover, she was well organized and well-founded, making it difficult for anyone to pick out any flaws. In a moment, I was choked. Zhang Rongfen was also taken aback by her daughter's bold resistance against Ning Shui, sitting on the side without daring to utter a word. Xiao Ba Wang Ning Chao did not have these concerns. He fanned the flames and said, "Dad, Mom, don't listen to this damn girl talk nonsense. She must have hidden the money. After knocking Ning Meng unconscious, he immediately rummaged through the pockets of her clothes and luggage. Damn it, he can't find a dime. This is clearly different from what that person said. Ning Chao doesn't think that person will deceive him, he just thinks that his sister is too petty. Hiding money too tightly. So he deliberately told Ning Shui that Ning Meng had stolen money from the family. He didn't believe it anymore. Let their father take the lead, and Ning Meng could still tell the truth without obedience. Result, hey, this dead girl, if she doesn't say it, she just doesn't say it. The more you think, the more angry you become. Before Ning Shuixing could speak, Ning Chao rushed up to Ning Meng and shouted, "Where did you hide the money? Hand it over quickly. She said you have 20 yuan on you." Speaking of which, Ning Chao paused for a moment and suddenly remembered that the person had once told him that she must never be confessed, otherwise they would both be unable to finish eating and walking around. So, halfway through the conversation, he had to pause in frustration and didn't continue. 20 yuan. Ning Shui magnified her voice in vain, her eyes almost wide open. She glared at Ning Meng with a fierce expression on her face. "Where did the stolen money hide, you loser? Did it go to the wild man who eloped with you? 20 yuan is not a small amount, it's enough for their family of 4 to live on for a month. Ning Meng is from a young girl's family and also a student. Where did she get so much money? There is no need to interrogate at all." Ning Shui has fully believed Ning Chao's words and believes that Ning Meng has stolen money from her family. If you haven't found the money, it must have been handed over to her accomplice, the wild man who eloped with her. Sure enough, what should come will still come. Ning Meng looked expressionlessly at the people present. Everything is the same as in the previous life, even Ning Shui's words cursing her are astonishingly similar. She remembers that in her previous life, she didn't wake up early and was pushed to wake up by Ning Chao. As soon as she woke up, she was scolded by Ning Shui holding a vine, asking her to kneel down and admit her mistake and hand over the stolen 20 yuan. At that time, she was both shocked, scared, and confused. Apart from crying non-stop, she couldn't say anything, but foolishly retorted time and time again stubbornly, "I didn't." However, no one believed it. Ning Shui not only refused to admit it, but also retorted and beat her to death, cursing even more harshly. It's also strange that she was too foolish in her past life. Ning Shui, who was half paralyzed, couldn't catch up with her. She didn't even know how to hide and knelt obediently in front of him, letting him smoke. In the southern rural areas of the 1990s, although people began to live in buildings, most of the households in the village were mud-walled and tiled bungalows like Ning Meng's family. Sound insulation is not poor, but there is none at all. Speak a little louder, and all the neighbors can hear it clearly. Ning Shui beat and scolded Ning Meng, and almost the whole village heard her. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Rumors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Rumors. In this era, the entertainment options in rural areas are limited, and it is rare to see a lively scene without money. Nearby neighbors put down their work and curiously gathered outside the Ning family door. Through the low wall, the neighbors not only heard the conversation inside Ning's house clearly, but also saw the people inside clearly. Then, rumors of Ning Meng stealing money from her family and eloping with a wild man spread like scattered snowflakes in the village. All misfortunes start from today, from this beating and scolding. In this life, she will never allow these people to tarnish her reputation again. Ning Meng fell silent for a moment, turned her head to look at Ning Chao, and calmly asked him, "Who told you those words? Who is she? I don't even know where our money is, how does she know? She even said the amount so clearly." At this moment, Zhang Rongfen finally reacted and repeatedly said, "That's it." "Ah Chao, who told you this?" Ning Chao couldn't help but glance at Ning Shui in front of her, then impatiently yelled at Zhang Rongfen, "Mom, why are you messing around? You're asking my sister something now. Zhang Rongfen was stunned by his roar, her mouth opened, and she stood timidly on the side, afraid to speak. In this home, Zhang Rongfen's presence is only slightly higher than Ning Meng's. Even if she diligently does household chores and takes good care of her paralyzed husband and children, it still cannot be exchanged for their gratitude. Both Ning Shueishui and Ning Chao never take her seriously. It's not like hitting whenever you want, or cursing whenever you want. Ning Meng looked at the scene before her coldly and indifferently, without much emotional fluctuation in her heart. There was no other reason, and her mother was used to it. Not only does she accept the mental abuse of her husband and son, but she also always persuades her daughter to be as patient as her. In the previous life, Ning Meng was foolish, obedient, and patient. Result in this life, she doesn't. Ning Meng turned her head to look at Ning Shueishui, slightly curled her lips, and calmly said, "Did I steal any money from my family?" "Dad, just count the remaining money at home and you'll know." Afterwards, he deliberately added, "Besides, I really want to take it, it's not just a small amount like 20 yuan. Their money is kept by Ning Shueishui. Where to hide and how much is left, only Ning Shueishui himself knows. Life in rural areas is very simple. Grain, oil, and vegetables are all grown in one's own land. Even simple cooking and seasoning don't cost much money. Usually, only when Ning Shueishui or Ning Chao wants to eat meat, he would give Zhang Rongfen money to go to the meat stall on the team to buy some meat and have a tooth-beating ceremony. As for other expenses, such as buying seeds and pesticides, this money is nothing more than Ning Meng's hands. Ning Meng's light and ethereal words almost made Ning Shueishui's nose crooked. She pointed at her hand and shook it for a while. "You." To be honest, Ning Shueishui's heart was pounding at the moment, not sure if she should believe Ning Meng's words. He is usually at home all day long, especially in his own room. Ning Meng really wants to steal money, he can't possibly not know. Ning Shueishui couldn't rest assured about the hidden money, so she anxiously asked Zhang Rongfen to push him back into the room to see if the money was still there. Having solved Ning Shueishui, Ning Meng turned her head to look at Ning Chao, who had been silent since just now. He. "Ah Mei, Ah Gu said the wrong thing just now. No one, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." Seeing that Ning Shueishui was really obedient and went back to his room to count money, Ning Chao saw the situation was not good. He turned his toes and chuckled a few times, pretending to be prepared to leave. Ning Meng didn't stop him and gave him a cold smile, saying, "Brother, even if you don't say it, I know who she is. Don't blame my sister for not reminding you, don't believe what anyone says. If a person is stupid, they should read more books, otherwise if they are sold, they will still help others pay. Who is stupid to say?" As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Chao's face instantly turned black. What he can't tolerate the most is that others say he's stupid, it's better to be cute. Angry and embarrassed, he just wanted to raise his hand and hit Ning Meng like before, but his movement stopped when he caught sight of Ning Meng picking up the bench at hand. Ning Meng raised the stool in her hand with a smile and said, If you want to open your head, why don't you try hitting me again?" Before, when she tolerated him, she thought he was family, allowed him, tolerated him, let him go, but that's all from the previous life. Now Ning Chao suddenly extinguished his anger. He felt like his sister had changed her personality when she woke up. Not only is it not easy to deceive, but it has also become fierce, even with a very different aura. Yes, it's momentum. Ning Chao, who has little reading and knowledge, rarely remembers a word that is consciously cultured. Actually, Ning Meng didn't lie. She really knows who that person is. If she guessed correctly, Ning Chao's she should be her intimate, good sisters, in her previous life, Su Zhenfang. As for the rumored wild man who eloped with her, Ning Meng's eyebrows and eyes suddenly jumped heavily. She suddenly remembered that the wild man they were talking about was a well-known little thug from the neighboring village. Chi Rui. However, they didn't know that the little thug Chi Rui who was now showing off his ferocity and making people look down on him. In the future, they will be so noble that they cannot climb high. Thinking of the little thug Chi Rui, Ning Meng's expression suddenly became strange. In my impression, Chi Rui has never been an easy-going person. Most people don't dare to provoke him. I don't know how Su Jinfang dared to fabricate rumors about herself and Chi Rui. She really went all out to step herself into the mud. Are you not afraid of Chi Rui's retaliation? That's right, although she had a rough life in her previous life, she still vaguely remembers that Chi Rui seemed to have left the village after she got married. Many years later, she recognized him from a financial program on TV. I also heard the host ask him why he hasn't gotten married or had a girlfriend for many years. Okay, you wait for me. Although Ning Chao was startled for a moment, he had always been a stubborn and domineering person. Not wanting to suffer any losses, he kicked the bench next to him. The stool collided with the door. The old-fashioned wooden doors in rural areas are either locked on the outside or bolted with wooden bolts inside. Although Shaojiang village is a community of mixed surnames, its neighbors are all acquaintances. In broad daylight, as long as someone is at home, the door is generally not locked. And just now Ning Chao kicked the door in, and the door was just closed. The stool collided and knocked the door open. Ouch! A figure fell straight in, but fortunately Ning Chao stood by the door and immediately reached out to help, so as not to fall and bite the mud. Why are you here? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Counterattack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Counterattack. Seeing the person's face clearly, Ning Chao's originally arrogant and proud face suddenly pulled down. He threw the person aside with force, as if touching something dirty. That person was only able to stand firm at first. Unexpectedly, Ning Chao would push her away, and there was nothing to support her. She didn't even shake her, so she fell hard on her butt. Listening to the loud sound of her buttocks landing, without further ado, Ning Meng felt pain for the other person. Ah Chao, what are you saying? At first, the person was stunned by the fall. When he realized it, he immediately looked at Ning Chao with grievances. However, when he saw Ning Meng standing in front of him, he stopped talking and, disregarding the pain, happily climbed up and ran over with a small step. His face was full of surprise. Meng, you're awake. Ning Meng glanced at Ning Chao, who had taken the opportunity to sneak away, and then glanced at the person standing in front of her, as well as the onlookers outside the door, who looked at her with a seemingly absent gaze. With a meaningful smile on his lips, he interjected, "Yes, I'm awake. If you don't wake up again, wouldn't you just be like in your life, letting you splash dirty water on your body?" The person in front of her is Ning Meng's good sisters in her previous life. It is also the woman who made her new husband leave his new wife and take away most of the family's property on her wedding night, Su Jinfang. In her previous life, Ning Meng couldn't figure out why her reputation fell to the dust overnight. So lowly that anyone can come forward and despise her, trample on her, insult her so much so that later, despite her reputation being ruined, she had to obey her parents' arrangements and marry into the Lin family. As a result, on the night of their wedding, the groom fled with his first love, Su Jinfang. It's hard not to die. During their escape from marriage, due to panic, on a sharp turning mountain road, the car couldn't stop and flew into the river. The end result is a life without seeing a person or a death without seeing a corpse. Overnight, Ning Meng not only experienced the pain of being abandoned by her husband, but also the pain of losing her husband. She didn't have any breathing space left for her. Just as Ning Meng was lost and at a loss, her father-in-law and mother-in-law, who had also experienced the pain of losing their son, collapsed and then beat and scolded her. She cursed her as a bereaved star, killed her husband's life, and killed their son on the first day of their wedding. Let her compensate for their son's life. At first, Ning Meng sympathized with them and felt that they were experiencing excessive grief. No matter how much excessive beating and scolding, Ning Meng silently endured it. Who knows, the other party sees her as weak and deceitful, and they are increasingly abusing her. Not only do we arrange a lot of household chores for her every day, but we also don't give her food to eat. Beating and scolding are common occurrences. Finally, unable to bear it anymore, Ning Meng packed her bags and ran back to her mother's house, only to be rejected by her so-called family members. Saying she is a married daughter is like splashing water. Since her husband is no longer here, she should serve her in-laws well in the Lin family. Ning's mother, Zhang Rongfen, directly revealed to her that when she was married to the Lin family, they not only gave her a dowry of 20,000 yuan, helped her build a new building, but also arranged a secure job for Ning Chao. The Lin family is a great benefactor to their family, and they want her to be grateful. In addition, Ning Chao, who has a house and a job, is getting married soon. I hope she can be more sensible and not run to her mother's house if she has nothing to do. At that time, Ning Meng realized that her family was no longer her family. That home is no longer her home. And all of this began with someone putting an unfounded charge on her. And that wild man who doesn't need to be there. Zhang Rongfen said, "This is your destiny, accept it. Accept your fate." How could she willingly accept her fate? Until the moment she was reborn and suddenly heard Su Zhenfang's voice, she finally understood. Her life's tragedies were all deliberately arranged by others. Especially now, without the emotional filters of the past, Ning Meng can tell at a glance the hypocrisy in the other person's eyes. Originally, from this moment on, Su Zhenfang no longer regarded her as a friend. That's why she rushed over at the first moment when she had an accident. Apart from watching a play, more importantly, she wanted to take advantage of the situation and throw stones at her. That's really great. Su Zhenfang tightly grasped her hand and pretended to look at Ning Meng's whole body, tentatively asking her, "By the way, your father didn't hit you, did he? Are you really looking forward to him hitting me?" Ning Meng looked at her with a smile rather than a smile. He, what are you saying? How could I think so? Su Zhenfang suddenly felt a little flustered in her heart, feeling that Ning Meng didn't seem as easy to handle as before. Ning Meng said, "Don't think so. Can you tell me what's going on when it's rumored that I eloped with a wild man outside?" Su Zhenfang chuckled twice and widened her eyes, pretending to be surprised, saying, "Are there any rumors?" "I don't know." Seeing that she didn't admit it, Ning Meng didn't talk to her anymore. She twisted her hand and pulled her towards the direction of the door. Although rumors were not the main culprit that killed her, Ning Meng was unwilling to endure them. She has a chance to be reborn, why should she live so miserably? "Ning Meng, what do you want to do? Let go of me." Su Zhenfang's face changed dramatically and she resisted with all her might, but as a delicate girl who didn't do much farm work, how could she compare to Ning Meng, who does all kinds of heavy and tiring work every day? In no time, Ning Meng grabbed Su Zhenfang's arm, as easily as catching a little chick. She strode to the door of the Ning family and threw her hard, knocking her to the ground. The Ning family has been causing such a commotion in broad daylight, and I don't know how many people are listening attentively to the excitement. When they saw Ning Meng pushing Su Zhenfang over, they didn't dodge and pointed openly at the two of them. Of course, the main target is Ning Meng. How could she still have the face to go out? Ning Shui is useless, he didn't even kill her. What's the use of beating her to death? She's done such shameless things as eloping with the second rate in the neighboring village. The ancestors of the Ning family have lost all their face to her. Ning Meng listened to these long-tongued women's words, but she didn't refute them. She picked up the firewood knife placed at the door and casually shook it. The firewood knife slashed through the air and with a thud, it hit Su Zhenfang's feet, who had just risen from the ground. Ah ah ah. Su Zhenfang's legs trembled with fear, her face turned pale, and she kept screaming. Amidst the screams, Ning Meng pulled out the firewood knife that had been inserted into the ground and looked around the crowd with a smile on her face. "Keep talking, why didn't you say it?" Everyone was dumbfounded. Hard ones are afraid of being horizontal, while horizontal ones are afraid of being deadly. Ning Meng's move is clearly a fierce fight against them. Seeing that the group of long-tongued women stopped talking, Ning Mengkai nodded with satisfaction. "Remember, if you shouldn't say something, don't say it recklessly. In the future, if anyone I hear says something I shouldn't say, I'll fight against them." After speaking, she casually shook the firewood knife in her hand and carefully examined everyone at the scene. That fierce force shook all the villagers who were watching. The people who originally wanted to speak immediately closed their mouths. Liveliness is beautiful, but life is more important. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The man. Ning Meng had such a commotion, watching the lively gossip villagers, including Su Zhenfang, who came to find a sense of existence. They all dispersed in a flurry. As she was about to close the door, the remaining light fell into a nearby corner. A few flowing young people gathered in a circle, squatting there as if playing cards. The most eye-catching one was a straight-faced, even squatting, half the height of the person next to her. I don't know how long they squatted there. How long have you watched the play again? Ning Meng. After many years, she suddenly saw the big shot she had seen on the TV not long ago. She is still the subject of rumors at this time. Ning Meng felt a bit confused for a moment, so she instinctively took another look. At this moment, it happened to catch the eye of a future tycoon. However, the current big shots lack the stability and elegance accumulated by time, and are still a young and handsome young man full of rebellious and wild aura. With a straight cut and a sharp and angular face, he is an extremely outstanding handsome man from any era's aesthetic perspective. Well, it looks quite ferocious. When Ning Meng looked over, he unconsciously furrowed his thick eyebrows and his dark and fierce pupils sank slightly. Like a wolf cub. Ning Meng paused slightly, blinked, then blinked again, and then, he closed the door without changing his expression. Jokes. Those rumors were not released by her. Why is she feeling guilty and afraid? Injustice has its revenge, debt has its owner. If you want to cause trouble, please take a few steps quickly, maybe you can catch up with Su Zhenfang, who just ran home. Originally just casually looking for a place to play cards, but accidentally watching a scene, a certain big shot and his little brother said, "This girl, what do you say when you look at him? It's very strange. It's not like other girls seeing them with the same disgust and fear, and then avoiding them from afar. It's not like what those gossipy women just said. She loves him like crazy, even running away from home to elope with him. She is calm. Respect people." Qi Rui wouldn't use too many words to describe it, he just felt that Ning Meng, this little girl, unexpectedly caught his eye. "Let's go, from now on, don't make jokes about this girl." Qi Rui knows the virtues of his brothers. When I see a beautiful girl, I can't help but whistle and say some nonsense to tease people. I insist on making those big girls and little wives blush. It's better to avoid them. A young man with a guafucheng haircut curiously approached and said, "Brother Rui, have you taken a liking to him?" Qi Rui snorted coldly and raised his chin, gesturing for them to look at the firewood knife stuck in the crack of the wall at Ning Meng's doorstep. "Do you see that knife?" Looking at the shabby and inconspicuous firewood knife, the young brothers suddenly shuddered. This girl is a thorny rose. She is not like an ordinary little girl, although she looks beautiful and delicate. It's really tough, actually even harder than many men. At least, even if they want to scare, they dare not draw their swords directly like Ning Meng. Ning Meng didn't know anyone was using her feet to intimidate her younger brother. However, even if she knew, she didn't care. In the eyes of Ning Meng, who had died once, face and image were nothing at all. The top priority is to find something and fill your stomach. She didn't eat anything all day, and when she woke up, she tossed and turned again. I was already hungry and panicked. In addition, her injured head and faint pain made her feel very uncomfortable. Seeing that there were still some soup noodles left in the kitchen pot, she could not ignore the cold noodles, which were lumped together. No matter whether it's delicious or not, after eating a bowl of noodles haphazardly, my stomach feels fulfilled. Ning Meng felt like she had truly come to life. Having eaten enough, Ning Meng had the strength to think and think. She didn't know why she was reborn. And the time for rebirth is good, but it's not too good. If it were a few days earlier, perhaps her life path would have been much easier than today. However, it's okay. Trees are dead, people are alive, even if they cannot escape the shackles of their original family through reading. She will have other ways to break away from the Ning family, break away from the scumbag, and live the life she wants to be. Especially now, in the early 1990s, an era where one can change their destiny with just their hands and hard work. At this time, the faster social change, the more business opportunities there are. If she remembers correctly, there will be a wave of public officials going to the sea next year. A large number of large conglomerates in later generations, such as XXX Juice Group, XXX Pharmaceutical Group, XXX Insurance Group, etc., were created by the group of big shots who went overseas in 1992. Ning Meng doesn't expect to grow to the heights of those big shots, but she also hopes to seize one or two opportunities. In this golden age of the 1990s, make your own way. However, doing any business requires capital. Ning Meng watched as she rummaged through her suitcase and found a pile of small bills wrapped in handkerchiefs. A total of 19 yuan and 70 cents. I sighed helplessly. No way, with just a little money, I don't even have enough startup funds to start a small business. This little money is only enough to buy a few pounds of meat or a piece of clothing. There's nothing I can do. Without money in her pocket, she has no confidence. Even if she has a good money-making plan, she cannot implement it. We still need to find a way to make money. Ning Meng let out a heavy sigh again. Do you work in a factory to earn money? No, the speed of making money is too slow. As soon as this idea arose, Ning Meng immediately rejected it. Besides, Ning Shui may not be willing to let her go out to work. He also knew he was not good to her, afraid that Ning Meng would go out of her mind and never come back. Make a contribution to this family's success. So, even if she dies, he will trap her to death at home. Until, like in the past, someone was willing to offer a large dowry to buy her away. When Ning Meng thought about these terrible things, her desire to make money and her desire to leave the Ning family became even stronger. It is said that we rely on mountains to eat mountains, and we rely on the sea to eat the sea. The place where Ning Meng's family is located is a small village not far from the town in the southwest. The geographical location is relatively advantageous. But there are neither mountains nor rivers and seas around, and Ning Meng cannot pick up mountain goods or sea goods. Fortunately, this is a hilly area, but with vast bamboo forests, vast paddy fields, and crisscrossing rivers. She can not only go to the paddy fields to pick snails for sale, but also go to the river to catch fish for sale. Although this river flows through the village, it belongs to collective property. The fish in the river are naturally raised and have no owner. As long as you can catch it, sell it or eat it yourself, the villagers won't say a word more. Having figured out the way to make money, Ning Meng's heart finally settled down slightly. You can also lie back in bed and rest well. New books, rolling for collection, comments, and votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Finding ways to make money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Finding ways to make money. The next day, genius was shining brightly, so Ning Meng quickly got up. Without disturbing the rest of the family, he carried the handy firewood knife and a bucket and went out. She was familiar with the way and first went to her own bamboo forest to chop down a relatively thick bamboo. Cut the bamboo into sections, with bamboo sections that connect the head and tail. Then, she took bamboo slices and scraped a shallow layer of soil on the bamboo roots, digging out more than 10 plump and thick earthworms. Once everything is ready, we immediately move the things to the riverbank without stopping. Find a feng shui treasure land with dense water plants, dig a deep pit by the river with a wooden knife, and add a small amount of water to form a water pit. Next, place the bamboo tube at the connection between the river and the water pit. The bamboo tube at the end of the water pit is slightly higher than the one at the other end of the river to prevent the river from flowing into the pit. After adjusting the position of the bamboo tube, Ning Meng carefully placed the earthworms that had been broken into sections into the bamboo tube at the end of the water pit. Serve as bait for fish. September in the south is still summer. Not only is the weather hot, but the sun also comes out early. After Ning Meng finished her busy work, the sun had gradually risen to mid-air. She raised her elbow, wiped her forehead with her sleeve, and looked at the set fishing trap, unable to help but smile. As soon as Chi Rui arrived at the riverbank, he collided with Ning Meng's gaze. He unexpectedly raised an eyebrow. The river section here is relatively remote and the river water is turbulent, so usually not many people come over. Only people like him who want to catch fish for money come. Ning Meng is from every family, why are you here? However, he is not familiar with her and it is not convenient for him to ask. Moreover, at this moment, her face was sweating and her cheeks were flushed, as if she had applied rouge. And the messy and scattered hair on her forehead, wet with sweat, pressed against her smiling cheeks and neck, further highlighting her astonishing beauty. Chi Rui couldn't explain why, and suddenly felt a little dry-mouthed. He no longer dared to look closely at Ning Meng, pretended to be indifferent and kept away from strangers, turned around, and quickly walked towards another section of the river. There are only the two of them here. Ning Meng originally wanted to say hello to the future big shot and get along well. Helplessly, when the big shot saw her, except for the first moment of eye contact, there was even a lack of respect in the eyes afterwards. With a cold face, he turned around and walked straight upstream towards the river. Anyway, big shots are not so easy to make friends with. Ning Meng shrugged indifferently and sat down on a clean stone on the riverbank, enjoying the cool while waiting for the fish to enter the pit. During the waiting process, she watched as the big shot slapped the water surface on one end with a bamboo pole, and then ran to the other end to catch the fish with a net bag. Just running back and forth, in no time, I caught 3 or 4 fish. The appearance of a bountiful harvest. Although Ning Meng was full of confidence in the fishing traps she had set, she saw the big shots reaping one harvest after another. She became both envious and a bit nervous. After all, these fishing techniques were just what she accidentally saw while scrolling through her phone videos in the previous life. She has not practiced it in life. After Chi Rui picked up a big carp, he glanced at the 4 or 5 crucian carp in the bucket and estimated that they were enough to sell for quite a bit of money. I just stopped my hand. Prepared to pack up tools and go home to sell fish. Before leaving, he couldn't help but look back at Ning Meng. I noticed that she was staring at the river with her cheeks in her hands and her eyes empty, not knowing what she was thinking. He looked for a while, and his thick and black eyebrows almost wrinkled into a ball. She probably didn't want to commit suicide, did she? Yesterday, she was falsely accused of eloping. Although she later drove away all those gossipy women, the girl's mind has always been heavy. I can't imagine it, it's not impossible. She suddenly appeared by the rarely seen river today. You still have such a look on your face. It's hard not to be doubted. Chi Ruizhen was skeptical when he saw Ning Meng sprinting towards the riverbank. You can do whatever you want. In a moment of urgency, Chi Rui didn't have time to shout. He threw away his belongings and sprinted towards Ning Meng at a speed of 100 meters. I was about to take a quick step forward and stop her from jumping into the river then, what did he see? He saw Ning Meng squatting by the river, pulling open the fishing trap covered by water grass, and with a smile on his face, he bent down to catch a big crucian carp. Ning Meng put the fish on her hand into the nearby bucket and saw the big shot standing behind her, staring at her with a strange expression on her face. Curiously, he asked, "Do you have anything to do?" The girl in front of her, with delicate and fair skin, was dazzled by the scorching sunlight. That pair of sparkling water eyes, when focused on looking at people, seemed to crush all the sunlight in their eyes, incredibly bright. Chi Rui remained silent and gave her a deep gaze, then glanced at the fish in the puddle. Quietly picking up the thing he had just casually thrown aside, he turned around and left. What did he want to do just now? Ning Meng scratched her head in confusion. Just now, the boss's gaze at her was cold and hard, like a thorn. She was so big that she had never seen a more indifferent gaze. What a strange person. Ning Meng stared at the gradually fading black spot in front of her and murmured to herself. However, such a small emotion was quickly dissipated by the bountiful fish harvest. In the morning, after a while of hard work, Ning Meng harvested 8 or 9 wild big crucian carp weighing about 1 pound and 2 big carp weighing about 3 pounds. There are 5 or 6 small crucian carp and some loaches. Ning Meng, regardless of size, packed everything into a bucket. Then continued to cover the puddle with water plants. "I'm not ready to rest anymore, I'm carrying a full bucket of fish and rushing to the town to sell." She is afraid of going late and not occupying a good spot, as the fish cannot be sold. With such a belief, Ning Meng kept burying her head and rushing on. Just a bucket full of fish, coupled with the need to fill the bucket with some water, so the weight is not light. Although Ning Meng was also a hard-working farmer from a young age. But after walking with such a heavy object in one hand and exchanging hands for a while, she still had to stop and rest for a while. As she stood by the roadside resting, sweating profusely, a bicycle quickly passed by her. Ning Meng didn't care either, feeling that she had rested enough and was about to take the bucket and continue walking forward. The bicycle that had already been ridden suddenly backed up and stopped at her feet. Ning Meng looked up in confusion and was immediately surprised. The person in front of me is actually a big shot." The man stood on the bicycle, his feet touching the ground, facing against the light, and looked down at her from a high position, waiting for his gaze to fall on the fish in her bucket. It seemed like a small shock. Before Ning Meng could speak, the man had silently parked the car and reached out to pick up the bucket in Ning Meng's hand. He said roughly, "I'll help you." "Thank you, don't you need it anymore?" Ning Meng glanced at the bucket tied to the rear frame of the car and shook her head. The big shot is being too sentimental. Happy New Year's Day. Treasures. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Selling Fish in Town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Selling Fish in Town. Although I don't know why the big shot, who has always been cold as ice, would kindly offer to help. But Ning Meng cannot naturally accept other people's goodwill. She retrieved the bucket. Chi Rui seemed to understand Ning Meng's thoughts and suddenly said, "I'm not helping you in vain. I have a transaction I want to do with you." Ning Meng was taken aback and said, "What?" "Speaking later, if you don't leave, you may not be able to secure a good spot." During the conversation, the man had already started dismantling the straps on the back frame of his bicycle and removing the bucket of fish he was holding. "And pick up a few sturdy wooden sticks from the roadside, use them as carrying poles, and tie them horizontally to the bicycle tailstock." Ning Meng thought about it too. It is important to go to the town early to sell fish. Since she knew that the other party was offering paid help, she stopped talking and went straight up to help hold the bicycle. Watching him hang 2 buckets of fish on one side and secure the buckets with straps. After tying up her things, Chi Rui crossed her long legs and sat directly on the saddle. She turned her head to look at her and said, "Get in the car." Ning Meng looked at the bike rack with the goods tied up, and then at the crossbar in front of the bike. After hesitating for a second, he silently climbed onto the rear frame of the car. Compared to the embarrassment of sitting in the arms of a big shot, she prefers to sit in the back. However, on the tailstock at the back, she was tied with both a wooden stick and a bucket filled with fish. She sat with her legs half bent, feeling particularly uncomfortable. But in order to arrive in town earlier, Ning Meng could only endure it. "Sit down now." Chi Rui watched as Ning Meng sat on the rear frame with her legs half bent. He reminded her and started pedaling forward. Cycling is faster than walking. It takes an hour to walk from Shaojiang village to the town, and it only takes about 20 minutes by bike. When the two of them arrived at the farmer's market, it was the busiest time of the morning market, with people coming and going. The farmer's market is free to set up stalls. As long as it does not block the pedestrian walkway, pay some market management fees. Large booths tend to pay more, while smaller booths tend to pay less. When Ning Meng found a good location and paid the administrator, she was about to ask Chi Rui whether they would set up a stall together or separate. Unexpectedly, when I turned my head, I saw the man carrying his fish disappearing into the vast sea of people. In this situation, Ning Meng didn't know what to say. Fortunately, she didn't have much time to dwell on this small matter. As soon as her fish was released, an old lady with a vegetable basket approached her and asked, "Little girl, how do you sell this crucian carp?" Ning Meng's face immediately filled with laughter and she replied crisply, "Auntie, these are wild crucian carp. I only caught them from the river this morning. If you're interested, I'll give them to you at a cheaper price. If they don't weigh, just 1 yuan per fish." Actually, when she first entered the farmer's market, Ning Meng had already inquired about it. The price difference between crucian carp and carp is not significant, basically just a little over 1 pound for 1 yuan. Her crucian carp weigh about 1 kilogram per piece, and selling them for 1 yuan is just right. Seeing Auntie standing still, it's obvious that she's moved, Ning Meng said with a clear idea in her mind, taking advantage of the heat. "If you buy 3 or more, I'll give you another small one. What do you think?" As she spoke, Ning Meng picked up a small crucian carp from the bucket and showed it to her aunt, which looked like 2, 3, and 2. Her rough and simple promotional prices have confused Aunt a bit. Those who don't take advantage of the advantages are fools. Ben was still hesitating whether to buy it or not, and immediately paid for 3 crucian carp. Several people selling other goods around couldn't help but look at each other. "Ah, can we still sell goods like this?" However, before they could exclaim more, the others who were still watching also started buying 3 or 3 items. Ning Meng originally only had 9 big crucian carp and 5 small crucian carp. After a while, the 9 big crucian carp and 3 small crucian carp were sold and given away. As for those 2 big carp, which are heavy and have a high unit price, we will implement a buy 1 get 1 free promotion. Buy a carp for 3 yuan and get a small crucian carp as a gift. In just over 10 minutes, Ning Meng cleared all the fish she caught this morning. Even those dozen or so loaches were willing to pay an extra 50 cents to buy them together. The rapid selling speed makes people next to me who are also selling goods very excited. This little girl looks delicate, weak, and beautiful. When it comes to doing business, she goes from one thing to another. All the fish have been sold out, and Ning Meng wants to take a stroll around the town in search of more opportunities to make money. The 9 big carp, 2 big carp, 5 small carp, and some loaches she caught today sold for a total of 15 yuan and 50 cents. Deducting 50 cents from the market management fee. It's exactly 15 yuan. If you have 15 yuan every day, you can earn 450 yuan in a month. Of course, 450 yuan is not a big deal in later generations, but in the early 1990s when the per capita salary was only around 100 yuan, it could be considered a large income. However, Ning Meng was even more aware in her heart that she had made a lot of money selling fish today, but this fish was not available every day. She was able to catch so many fish in the river today, but it was actually more luck. Besides, even if she can catch so many fish every day, it's hard to guarantee that she can sell them out every day. It's better to find a long-term business to do. However, for now, after careful consideration, the business of selling fish can still continue. Ning Meng was pondering in her heart as she wandered around the farmer's market. The farmer's market not only sells food, but also has several stalls selling clothes. Several young women dressed fashionably are picking and choosing at the stall. I often feel that the quality of the clothes is either not good enough or the styles are too outdated. Upon hearing this, the vendor pulled on a goose yellow floral dress and held it up in front of them, exclaiming angrily, "Look, look! I bought these goods in Yangcheng, they are of good quality and fashionable. I dare say, even in department stores, you can't find such cheap and beautiful clothes." A few words made those women feel a bit awkward, so they simply threw off their clothes and left. While walking and discussing, "Oh my God, she really meant to say that this is the product from Yangcheng. We haven't seen Yangcheng products in department stores before, and the style and quality are much better than hers. What's the solution? The quality of the department store is good, but the price is also too expensive. I fell in love with a dress last time, guess how much it costs? Oh my God. 138 yuan. It's already a month's salary. Hey, there are too few clothing stores in Shuishi town, only one department store and a few street vendors. Either the price is too expensive or the quality is too poor, so there are no good-looking and cheap ones. Forget it, let's save more money and go buy at the department store next time." The speaker has no intention, the listener has a heart. Ning Meng's heart suddenly moved as she knew that wholesale clothing in Yangcheng was very cheap. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. So Wild. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. So Wild. Her aesthetic taste may not be top-notch, but at least she has seen various fashion trends in later generations, and she is definitely stronger than those who set up street stalls in farmers' markets. Go to Yangcheng and pick some fashionable clothes to sell back. The sales should be good. The profit between the selling price of clothes and the wholesale price is much greater than what she earns by working hard to catch and sell fish. Unfortunately, she doesn't have enough capital yet, and everything still needs to be considered in the long run. But at last, there was a rough direction, and Ning Meng kept this matter in mind, so she continued to wander around the farmer's market and inquire about prices. After she remembered the prices of various products, she was satisfied and ready to go home. I don't know if it's a bad fate. As soon as she turned around, she saw some big shot walking towards her from a distance. Ning Meng was a bit curious about where he went to sell fish just now. She had been wandering around the farmer's market before, but she didn't meet him. Now it suddenly appears. The big shot is extremely tall and stands out like a chicken in the surging crowd. Although the clothes I wear are ordinary and even a bit tattered, they can't withstand the fact that people look good. Those two slender thighs, strong and stylish, look particularly beautiful when walking. Quickly, Chi Rui walked up to her and asked her in a rude voice, "Are you ready to go back? Then let's go." After speaking, walk straight ahead. Ning Meng didn't expect that the big shot would come to find her and go home together. She's a bit flattered. But when he thought about it, he wanted to make a deal with her as he had mentioned before. I suddenly felt relieved again. If you have anything you want, just say it directly. The fish have all been sold out, and Ning Meng doesn't want to guess the thoughts of the big shot alone. Anyway, I can't figure it out even after guessing, so it's better to ask him directly what the transaction was. The big shot is tall, has long legs, and walks fast. Ning Meng managed to keep up with him by jogging all the way. So when speaking, my breath is quite wheezing. Chi Rui, who had been rushing with a heavy head, suddenly stopped when his rebellious eyes dimmed upon hearing this. Ning Meng didn't notice and still maintained a running speed, accidentally almost colliding with the back of the big shot. I don't know if the big shot has eyes behind his back. You don't have to turn back, you can quickly grab her arm with quick eyes and hands. Avoided a car accident. Make sure she has stood firm, and the man quickly throws away his hand. It seems like staying on a woman's arm for an extra second is blasphemy towards him. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Ning Meng touched her nose and apologized awkwardly. No need. Chi Rui's beautiful and sharp eyebrows and eyes gradually developed a hint of indifference and vigilance when he saw the shy and thin red rising on Ning Meng's face. A slightly hoarse voice exuded a hint of seriousness. Did you intentionally try to touch porcelain? After speaking, the man's wanton gaze lingered on the woman's chest, indicating something, until the woman blushed with embarrassment before he calmly moved his gaze away. Ning Meng didn't expect it. The handsome and serious big shots on television in later generations were so wild when they were young. Surprisingly, he is really a flowing second-rate person. Ning Meng calmed down, took out $1 from her pocket, and met his frivolous and sinister gaze, looking completely fearless of him. Since you're not talking about the transaction, I'll treat this $1 as the fare. I won't let you help me out for nothing. No matter how scattered and out of tune Chi Rui is compared to him decades later. Ning Meng firmly believes that a man who can persist in doing charity for decades in future generations should essentially have a basic moral bottom line. Chi Rui originally wanted to discuss with Ning Meng and ask if she could give her fish to him, so that he could sell it together to a small restaurant with acquaintances. However, because he didn't have a conversation with acquaintances in advance, he took a step forward to ask for help. Unexpectedly, he only got a definite answer from his acquaintance and rushed back when he heard people around him say that the little girl selling fish is too good at selling goods. But they sold all the fish and so on in just over 10 minutes. It seems that she doesn't need his help at all. Chi Ruima paused for a moment, reached out to take the money from the woman's hand, and without even looking at it, casually stuffed it into his pocket. Putting away the flowing air, he nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll leave first." Seeing him take the money and leave, Ning Meng breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Although the future tycoon has thick thighs. If she has ulterior motives, she should hold on to the big shot's thighs before he gets rich. Even if she can't eat meat with him in the future, drinking some soup is enough for her to be beautiful. But Ning Meng is unwilling. She believes that relationships between people should be mutually warm, rather than mutually exploitative. So, in terms of their current relationship, a pure monetary relationship. That's the safest relationship. In early September, as it was not yet the busy farming season, farmers still had some leisure time. Passing by the neighboring Day's village on her way home, Ning Meng saw many villagers carrying fishing nets or dustpans into the river to catch fish. However, they just catch a few pieces that are enough for their own family to eat. Mainly, crucian carp is small and spiny, making it difficult to eat. Most villagers simply catch a few fish to satisfy their cravings because they cannot afford pork. Ning Meng's eyes suddenly lit up, feeling that this was a way to make money. In rural areas, everyone does physical labor, and of course, they like to eat pork that is full of fat, water, and bones. But the people in the city are different. In the early 1990s, some people had already become wealthy first. They pay more attention to the health and nutrition of their diet. Just like the wild crucian carp she sold in town today, why is it so easy to sell? It's not because those people know that wild crucian carp are more nutritious and delicious than artificially raised ones. In this way, she can pour some crucian carp into the town and even sell them in the county town. She earned 15.50 cents today, but spent 1.50 cents, leaving $14. Plus the original cost of 19.7 cents, now we have a capital of 33.7 cents. You can start doing some small business now. Do whatever you say, and the action-oriented Ning Meng immediately approached the villagers who were catching fish to chat up. Tell them to catch more fish. If there is a crucian carp weighing about 1 pound, she will buy it for 50 cents per piece. Of course, there are more than 50 cents of crucian carps sold in the town. Doing business, why is she busy working without making money? I definitely need to earn some hard work. If they can trust her, they will wait for her at the village entrance tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Moreover, she only collected 60 fish this time, and she will stop collecting enough. There is a reason to only accept 60 items. Ning Meng's capital is only over 30 yuan. Besides paying for the fish purchase, she also needs to keep some living money with her. Do you really want to buy crucian carp? Of course. It's true or false, just give it a try and you'll know. Rouge. I suspect you crave my body. Meng Meng. No, you're overthinking it. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Capturing Thieves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Capturing Thieves. Someone immediately handed over the 4 crucian carp they had just caught, which weighed about 1 pound, to Ning Meng. Yes, this size is fine. Ning Meng inspected the size of the fish and found it to be qualified. She fulfilled her promise and readily gave him 2 yuan. The money is settled now, and the news of him selling fish to Ning Meng quickly spread throughout Day's village. Ning Meng's crucian carp business has now opened. It's just that Ning Meng is not convenient to bring too many fish home. It's better to make an appointment with everyone. Tomorrow morning, she will come back to collect the fish. Having secured the supply of crucian carp, Ning Meng stopped staying in Day's village and hurried back home. She has been out for a long time, afraid of going back too late and causing unnecessary criticism. As soon as she got home, she felt that the house was unusually quiet. Just as she was about to scream, she suddenly heard an unusual noise coming from her room. Scratching, as if someone is searching for something. Has there been a thief at home? Ning Meng didn't panic like other big girls. She almost instinctively put down the bucket, grabbed the firewood knife in her hand, and quietly approached the door of her own house. I found that the door she had pulled tightly when she left in the morning was now half open. Through the crack in the door, she saw a man of medium stature rummaging around her house. After confirming that there were indeed thieves entering the house, Ning Meng tightened her firewood knife and glanced at the thick and wide back of the knife. Quietly retreating outside the gate, gripping the firewood knife and shouting loudly, "Catch the thief! There's a thief!" Ning Meng's shouting, sharp and bright, echoed in the air for a long time. The thief inside the house was suddenly frightened and confused. He ran out in a panic, trying to cover Ning Meng's mouth. Whispering softly, "Ah Mei. Stop shouting, it's me." At the moment Ning Meng appeared, she actually recognized him. Thinking with his toes, everyone knew that Ning Chao wanted to steal money from her house while she was not at home. I don't know how long his petty theft behavior has been going on. Ning Meng couldn't help but be grateful that she had been carrying money with her for the past 2 days. Otherwise, it would be cheaper for Ning Chao, this petty thief. At the thought that Ning Chao wanted to steal the capital from her business, Ning Meng was furious and determined to teach him a lesson. Pretending not to hear him, the screams in his mouth never stopped. Shouting loudly, "Catch the thief! Someone! There's a thief!" The movements on his hands were not ambiguous at all, and he struck with a horizontal blade that covered his head and face. Don't let him get close, vertically or horizontally. Ning Meng also made a fierce move, avoiding the blade and hitting wherever it hurt. A firewood knife was in her hand, dancing vigorously. Ning Chao, on the other hand, was beaten up and rushed around in pain, making her mouth scream uncontrollably. I can't resist even if I want to. Where are the thieves? Everyone, come on. That dog thing is about to run. Don't be so desperate. Dare to come to our village to steal things in broad daylight. Beat this damn thing to death. Kill him. Although the villagers of Shaojiang village don't really like the Ning family father and son, they are all from the same village. Neighbors still pay attention to mutual assistance and respect. Moreover, in this era where everyone is still relatively poor, the villagers hate the thieves who steal things the most. Upon hearing Ning Meng shouting loudly that there was a thief, the neighboring families responded quickly and picked up the guy at hand, rushing towards the Ning family. As soon as I entered the door, I saw a man holding his head and preparing to run outside. And Ning Meng, a delicate little girl, stood trembling in the yard with a firewood knife, looking speechless. They didn't care about seeing the thief's appearance anymore, and one by one, filled with indignation, picked up the guy in their hand and rushed forward. Hoe, pole, shovel, broom, all kinds of weapons greeted Ning Chao like a rainstorm. Everyone kept cursing while fighting. Ning Chao's weak cry for help was instantly drowned in the passionate emotions of everyone. That's it. Ning Meng looked on from the side, feeling uneasy in her heart, but she still had to pretend to have lingering palpitations on her face. The aunts, sister-in-law, and girls who came together did not participate in the activity of beating the thieves, but carefully pulled Ning Meng aside. Surround her in groups. Ah, Meng, are you scared? What about your dad, mom, and others? Why isn't there anyone at home? The speaker is the eldest daughter. In-law of village chief Wang Fuwang, also known as Mrs. Wang. I don't know, as soon as I came back from outside, I saw that my home had been robbed and my things were turned upside down. As soon as the thief saw the person coming back, he wanted to climb the wall and escape. Fortunately, Auntie, you came in time, otherwise he would have run away for him. As Ning Meng spoke, her expression still had a hint of suspicion and uncertainty. She also kept an eye on it. When beating Ning Chao, he occasionally kicks things around him over. Create a scene where thieves enter the house and randomly flip and litter. Good kid, don't be afraid. Uncle Wang and his team will definitely teach that dog a good lesson. Mrs. Wang is friendly and has always liked Ning Meng's understanding and diligence. I can't stand Ning Shueishue's preference for sons over daughters. But she can't resist being just an outsider and has no position to interfere in someone else's family affairs. Now seeing Ning Meng's pitiful expression, maternal love suddenly overflows. Don't try hard to comfort people. Don't be afraid, there are so many people around. He will look good later. The others also followed with various words of comfort. Ning Meng pondered that there are still good people in this world, and Xiaojiang village is not entirely a gossip woman. She was also very sincere. Thank you, aunties. What are you doing here? The door of the Ning family was open, and Zhang Rongfen pushed Ning Shueishue in from outside. They just went out for a stroll, and when they returned, they saw a group of people gathered in their own yard, making a fuss. I couldn't help but ask with a resounding voice. Lao Ning, you came back just in time. We caught a thief and you should check if there's anything lost at home. Upon hearing Ning Shueishue's voice, Uncle Wang, who was still beating the thief, immediately stopped and squeezed out of the crowd. What? My house has been robbed. As soon as he heard that a thief had entered his home, Ning Shueishue became extremely anxious. He remembered the money he had collected in his own house, and immediately became so angry that he blew his beard and widened his eyes. I wish I could immediately rush into the crowd and break down that little thief in 8 pieces to clear my grudge. Everyone stopped their hands when they saw the victim returning. Let's see how Ning Shueishue plans to deal with it. Should we beat him up or send him to the village office and have the village officials report it to the police? Ning Chao, kneeling on the ground with his head in his arms, immediately wept with joy upon hearing the voice of his father Ning Shueishue. Dad! Come and save me, he shouted with a heart-wrenching voice. As soon as Ning Chao's voice came out, not only were Ning Shueishue and his wife stunned. Also scared the group of villagers who came to help catch the thieves. No, didn't they just hit a thief? How did it become Ning Chao? End of this chapter.